I just want to give you a bit of a lowdown on debugging web applications, because you're writing web applications and they will have bugs in them, and you will have to find out what the bug is, and you'll have to fix it, work out what the problem is. So here I am with my little web application. This is my little likes application. I've got some bugs in it, so let's have a look what happens when I try and run my code. My server is up and I can go to my web browser and refresh, and I get a 500 internal server error. So here's my first problem. Something's wrong. How do I find out what is wrong? The clue is down here in the window that is running my application, and you can see here the traceback of the error message. And we can see this error message contains information about what happened. The actual error is right at the bottom here. So the last thing on the line there is the error, and it says there's no such table called likes. And higher up we can see where the code was being executed when this error was found, and so in database.py line 46, and in PyCharm we can actually click on that and be taken exactly to line 46, and you can see it's trying to execute this SQL. But in this case there's nothing wrong with that line, but the error message there tells me that there is no such table likes, which suggests that the database hasn't been created, and so the likes table would exist if this had been executed. So let's execute this code here, the database module there. That's now being executed, and now let's try rerunning this code to see what happens. Okay, and there we go. So back to my web browser, I can refresh the page and we're good. We have a running application. Okay, so now we can, let me just make this a bit smaller. Now we can, so I can see the information here at the same time. So my name is Steve and I like bread. And we have our 500 error again. Now where's the 500 error this time? We can again look through here and start looking at it, but I want to do one more thing just to give you another clue. It's actually very useful when we are debugging code to see a little bit more than this in the window of our web browser. So if we turn on debugging with bottle, so if I import debug from bottle and then say debug true here after I create my application, or anywhere in fact there before I start running my server, then that basically puts bottle into debug mode. And the big thing that does is that when we get an error, a 500 error, as well as seeing that just 500, we actually see in the browser here some information about the problem. So we see the name of the exception, the thing that went wrong. So here's the error message, internal server, tuple index out of range, and then we can see here all the information about where it occurred. But in fact, most useful, so that gives you a good indication of the kind of thing that's going wrong. But if we go back here, we can again trace back. So here's the error, and we trace backwards through the code to see what went wrong where. And so here we can see in database.py, in get likes, there is a problem. I have this line of code, and that is the line of code that is causing the error. And it says tuple index out of range, which means that I'm trying to access something inside a tuple, inside a sequence that is not in there. I've got too far. And so in fact what's happened, the bug I've introduced here is instead of one, I've got two. So I was trying to access a third thing in a list that's only going to have two things in it, name and thing. So I can fix that and everything's going to go back and hopefully work again. So I can go through now and test my code, and there it is. So some basic ideas there about the tracing through of errors. Let's introduce another error here. Let's try and say titles there, and so that's a variable that doesn't exist, and I'll go through here. That will produce an error that says titles doesn't exist, and this is a slightly different one, because we go through here and no, it's just giving us nice information. So we're getting 2 bits of information here. Titles is not defined, and in fact it's very nicely shown us the place in which that error occurs, so I can go and fix it. What I wanted to show you here, what I thought it might not do, was you can see that this bit of code here, this is code that I've written, so that's possible that that's the source of the bug. But here, this is not code that I've written, this is bottle.py, and sometimes you have to trace back through this list here to get to the bit of code that you wrote that might have the problem. So here, for example, I've got main.py where I'm calling my template, and it is that's a bit of code, and then it then calls the bottle renderer to actually do the work. So if you find that the stuff at the bottom is actually not your code, it's stuff in bottle, then just trace backwards until you see some code that you've written, and that is likely to be where the problem is. It's very unlikely in these applications that you find a bug in bottle or in Python itself. More likely, most likely, almost certainly, the bug is in your code, and so you need to find which bit of your code was running at the time that the problem happened. So carefully trace back these errors, read the error messages that you're getting and understand them, the error messages there at the bottom, work back through and try and see what happened in that problem. So there will be many bugs in your code. Hopefully you can find them, but there's just a few clues about how you might go about finding bugs. Thanks.